Okay, and just want to welcome Aaron onto the Centre Circle podcast today. So I just want obviously a big thanks to yourself. I know in the Twitter community, your sort of opinions hold a lot of weight with Villa fans, but also on other subjects, which I'll let you introduce yourself. So I'd love you to sort of talk a little bit about your background, a little bit about yourself, and kind of why Villa.
Yeah, no problem at all, mate. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated. So I'll start with the first avenue, I guess. Villa. Why Villa? There is no reason really. Villa. That's the honest answer. My family are predominantly West Ham, London supporting team sides. And I chose Villa because I chose Villa. I was drawn to the club. I was drawn to the way they were playing when I first got into football at an early age. There's a slight link with Birmingham through my granddad when he was little, but there's nothing really there to shout about too much. So I got into Villa kind of with the David O'Leary era. And that's kind of when I really started watching Villa. Fell in love with the club, fell in love with the way we played, fell in love with key players at that time. And I guess Villa then just became my kind of boyhood club, really. For years, I was battered and kind of pushed in the direction of being a West Ham fan. And I did follow West Ham for a kind of short period in my younger life. But Villa, since kind of 10, 11 years old, I bought my first Villa shirt, and then that became a regular thing season on season. And I just became a kind of avid Villa fan, really, mate. So
It's
that's
always
kind of
been
how
claret and
Villa,
blue then.
always been claret and blue,
That's the
whichever
main
one. Thank
thing.
God it
That's the
wasn't
main thing.
Burnley.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I didn't realise you were going to come on today. So I've got my Birmingham City Blue jumper on, which I'm going to get stick for, I'm sure. But
I'm
fantastic.
I'm in. So that's kind of how the story with Villa went, really, mate. What do I do in regards to my career? I've been involved in working with vulnerable people for a long, long time, probably 15 years or so now in regards to kind of leaving college and getting into that field of work. Vulnerable people with various different needs and requirements and supporting needs. So learning difficulties, young people, young offenders, mental health, domestic violence, drugs and alcohol, homelessness. So the whole kind of list of vulnerable categories doesn't end, it's an endless list, really. And I've had various roles supporting various aspects of that kind of paradigm for the last 15 years. On top of that, also been heavily into my fitness. So when I say heavily involved in fitness, I'm a personal trainer, online coach, nutritionist, a little bit of sports psychology and performance analysis in my younger years at Leeds Foundation and at the Girls Centre of Excellence for England. So I've been quite involved in football, like kind of amateur to semi-pro level. And so all of this kind of combination of things and passions of mine kind of brings me to the last 5-6 years of my life, whereby mental health has very much been a subject that I'm been heavily involved with. I've struggled with my own mental health issues for most of my kind of teenage and adolescent and adult life. I deal with them very well, I think, on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm way up that scale compared to many other people who unfortunately are really struggling at this current time. But I understand it. I've been there, got the t-shirt, worn it several thousand times. And I've been able to kind of support people with their own mental health needs, using my own experiences and my own kind of toolkit that I've built up over the last 20, 25 years, and kind of led me to here. So I guess over the last year or so, 18 months or so, football on Twitter became more than football. And I started really realizing that there were a hell of a lot of Villa fans, particularly in our Villa community, that were struggling. And I was reaching out to these people in a kind of football way, but really football wasn't what I wanted to talk about. It was kind of, how are you? You seem down. I don't really know you, but I'm able to recognize that there are things that you're saying and doing and acting on Twitter that aren't quite right. So I'm here to help you if you need help. And I guess it's kind of all spiraled from there, really. And I've created a support group on Twitter for Villa fans in lockdown this time. We've got about 40 people on there. And yeah, it's just kind of kicking on from there, really, mate. So I've been a few things with a few of the big Villa fan forums. So quite good friends with Dan Bardell and the Villa View boys. And I've just been getting involved with as much as I can. Also done a podcast with Villa Together, taken on a role at Villains Together, the diversity and equality group. I'm just really kind of kicking on and trying to do whatever I can to support people in this Villa community, because it's where my heart is. That's why I was on Twitter in the first place. So that's kind of what I want to do moving forward. So of course it's about the football, but there's also a huge side of life that isn't about the football, where football is actually completely irrelevant. And this is people's well-being and their mental health, and that's what's important to me. So
absolutely. I mean, I don't think anyone at this time probably hasn't had someone in their life, or indeed themselves, that's probably not faced this, especially at the moment. The last 12 months has been, even for the most mentally strong people, has probably been, one of the worst parts of their life. I don't think anyone could have expected where we were 12 months ago to where we are now. It's but I've seen in particular a few times on Twitter where there's been a few people that have put some worrying messages up, and if you click on the messages just to give out any support, I will say your name seems to be first on most to have put the first comment on. And again, that's for me why one of the reasons we wanted to get you on today. We want as a group, as a podcast, like you say, it is all about the football, but we do want to be supporting the right message, and and people like yourself being on the podcast, exciting for ourselves. So really, really, again, thanks again for coming on.
No, you're welcome, mate. Appreciate the words. Thank you.
So moving back to Villa, so I'd like to sort of, like you say, you've been a Villa fan for a long time, but obviously we've been up and down, and but particularly the last 5 years, I'd like to pick your brain. What's your thoughts from literally like the relegation to kind of the merry-go-round of owners and managers to kind of not just where we are in the league right now, but on and off the pitch, and kind of, are you excited about the future?
Yeah, hugely excited. I think for me, 5 years ago, as many Villa fans probably were in the same place, I didn't really see a way out. Relegation was inevitable. Sherwood came in, Guard came in, Houllier at the start of it all kind of got that ball rolling as best as he could, but it just never seemed to click. Nothing ever seemed to happen the way that I think the fans thought it would, and a way that the owners at the time, Randy, thought it would as well. And we kind of got ourselves into this dark hole of doom and gloom, and nothing really much to talk about in a positive sense. I think the most positive thing from that era was kind of the emergence of Jack Grealish under Sherwood, and the signing of Darren Bent by Houllier in the January transfer window. So, apart from that, it wasn't much to rave about. Relegation happened. That was an awful season for us, horrendous season. We had a lot of players at the club that clearly didn't want to be there. They were just there for the big bucks. It wasn't easy as a Villa fan at all. And I thought relegation, actually, although as hard as it was, because for Villa that was quite an unusual thing, being relegated. Relegation was ultimately the best thing that could have ever happened to us, because we'd have just rotted in the Premier League. We went down to the Championship. I knew straight away that wouldn't be an easy first season in the Championship for us, regardless of the kind of Zia takeover and the Di Matteo coming in as the old pro star. And I think a lot of people, I think you're either on two sides of the fence for me. You were either Zia is the real deal. This is going to end amazingly. And then there was the other half that were like, who is this Zia? No one's ever heard of him. Where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
Has he got any expertise? Has he got any knowledge? And ultimately, we were all given the ultimate news at the end of all that. And he perhaps wasn't the man that he claimed he was, and he wasn't the answer to Villa's prayers at all.
Just on that quickly, sorry to cut across you.
No, mate, no problem.
I know there's obviously a lot of troubles in terms of getting money out of China, and I think West Brom are also facing the same sort of troubles now. Should that not have been an issue and that not have been brought in, do you see that reign ending any differently, or do you just think that it was a little bit of a circus? Or
I think Gia was a man who loved football, and I don't particularly think he knew how to work in football. And I think ultimately any owner with that ethos, any owner with that kind of outlook, will probably not get to where he wants to be. I think in that whole reign, Wyness kept us afloat. And as in the very good Jude's podcast with Keith at the beginning of last month, we found out that Keith perhaps was a puppet on a string, really, and Gia really didn't know what he was doing. And so, I think it was going to end regardless. The money issues in China, I think, just shadow and kind of let him get away with quite a lot of things. We couldn't get any money out of China. Maybe that's not his fault. But actually, fundamentally, there were so many little elements that his reign brought real negativity to how the club was being run. And I'll always say it, I'll always support Bruce in regards to him coming in and steadying that shit, because my God, he did.
Yeah.
Bruce was exactly the right appointment. Long term was never the answer. Tactically was never the answer, but he's a good manager, and players love Bruce, and they build good relationships with him.
Yeah.
So for me, Bruce was the right answer.
Definitely. I commented on this on the first podcast that I did. As much as in the end it didn't end the way that probably Bruce would have liked it to at Villa. I think him coming in was probably the start of our ship being steadied. Him coming in, bringing in characters like Snodgrass, like John Terry. I personally think that is one of the main reasons why Jack Grealish is so professional now. I think he needed to be around players like that to actually show him how to be a professional footballer. And I think that, it might not be right now, but I think in years to come, Jack will look back at that and sort of realise how integral that was to his career, because you just sort of saw a switch in him over the summer. You just saw non-stop working out, and it was John Terry's doing a run on a treadmill, and all of a sudden Jack Grealish is doing exactly the same thing. And I just think it was just, like you say, as much as I do think that, Bruce, his time was right at the time to go, I think it was so important when he came in to kind of give us that professional outlook that we needed at the time.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And with Bruce comes a hell of a lot of experience and expertise and knowledge of players and relationships with players and coaches, etc. And that's what we had with John Terry. I don't believe John Terry would have signed for Villa had Bruce not been in charge. Yeah. And I think for me, John Terry was an inspiration. He was a role model for a hell of a lot of players at Villa at the time, Jackie Boy included, probably mostly Jack, a real role model, a real someone to look up to. So we can't really discredit Bruce for any of that. That was an important step that we needed to make moving forward to get the club back to where it needed to be. His tenure got to the point whereby, it wasn't nice football anymore, particularly typical Bruce long ball football, and that really wasn't what we wanted to be playing, and fans didn't want to see that anymore. And then then we started to see the Villa of old and the Villa with the vision that everybody wanted them to have and where they wanted to be. The new owners came in, Dean Smith came in, good young players with a hell of a lot of talent came in. And we've gone from strength to strength from there, really.
And quickly, just your thoughts on, obviously, our first the sort of the favourite at the time was Thierry Henry. Me personally, I didn't want that. And hindsight, it's easy to say that's what I was thinking, but genuinely, I didn't want Henry. But thank God that we got Smith in the end.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. He's absolutely the right man for the job. I'm a great believer in any sport, whether it's football, rugby, netball, whatever it is. If you've got a manager in charge of a club that they've supported all their life, and you give the captaincy to a boyhood fan that's now your captain, I think you're on to a winner, mate. Yeah. The passion is there. You don't need to go looking for that passion. You don't need to work hard to fall in love with that club. It's already there, and that exists. And I think that ethos is quite clear to see across the board now. We have so many players that love the project. They love the manager. They love the club. They love being there. It's a home. It's a place of success, and they want to be a part of it moving forward. So chuffed to bits, mate. And the coaching staff that we've got behind Dean as well, I think we need, they need credit. Sometimes they go a bit kind of abyss, really.
Yeah.
But, they deserve a lot of credit. There's a lot of good coaches there, a lot of upcoming coaches. Neil Cutler, the goalkeeping coach, has done wonders with goalkeepers in the last 2-3 years. O'Kelly, a real man motivator, doesn't say a lot, but hell of a lot of respect and regard from the players. So we got all those sorts of players and coaches having some fantastic relationships behind the scene, and it's great. It's lovely to see. It's really lovely to see.
I don't know about yourself, but I think, and probably Shakespeare, if you could hear this, probably wouldn't thank me for it. But I think he's one of those people that are absolutely fantastic as a number two. I think him coming into that coaching team has transformed us a little bit. It's a little bit like that Leicester winning Premier League winning season, where he come in and he kind of, he's not a puppet on a string at all. He kind of has got his own fresh ideas and the way that he can bounce off with Smith. And again, like you say, it just litters the whole club with more Villa fans. And, if you're passionate about something, I'm a salesman. So if I need to be passionate about something to sell it, and they're passionate about a Villa, so they want it to work as much as anything else. So
yeah, absolutely. It's a natural thing. It's an organic, it's an organic environment. It speaks for itself. Like Ron Seal says exactly what it does in the tin. People don't have to. People are coming into the club. The coaches are coming into the club, believing in the project and believing in the other people that are already working at the club. And so there's a needlessness to want to feel like you want to be there, because you just do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fantastic, mate. Yeah,
absolutely. And okay, moving on. So we've sort of kind of briefly sort of gone from the lows to the highs. What do you think Villa looks like in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, it's a big ask. So I think for us this season, let's start with this season, the first of that 5. I think for this season we need to be looking at mid-table.
Yeah.
I think there is an expectation from fans to go all the way. Let's get Europe. It's a long, hard season. There's a long way to go yet. And we've seen in recent weeks that our performances at times are not up to scratch and haven't been up to scratch. And we need to find our feet again and get back into that rhythm. But I think this year, a mid-table finish, maybe 10th, 9th, 8th, something like that would be fantastic for us. And then we build again in the summer. We need 2 or 3, 4 possibly quality additions in the summer to really take us up the next level. And then from there, mate, the world's our oyster. Who knows where we're at? But within 5 years, that's a hell of a long way off. Within 5 years, I'd like to see us competing regularly in Europe. Top 6, possibly top 4. It really depends on where the so-called top 4 teams go from here. We've seen a demise in Arsenal this year. We've seen a struggling Chelsea at times. Man City at the beginning got off to an awful start, now doing very well. Liverpool are crumbled this year. We just don't know. Leicester are coming back through the ranks again. West Ham are doing incredibly well. Who knows where we'll be in 5 years' time. But I'd love to see Villa in that kind of top 4, top 6 mix and back to those kind of Martin O'Neill playing days, but with much better off-goings, behind the scenes and the club being ran much better than it was then.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's quite funny because, as much as, like you said, there is an expectation for us to really push on. I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we stayed up by our fingernails last season. And, even if we finished a place above where we did last season, it's still progression. And ultimately that is all we want as fans, is to be progressing and progressing and progressing. And, to finish in the top half this season would be remarkable, really, from 2 years ago, almost going bust and being FC Aston of whatever, and to be even talking about going into Europe, it's I think people might just need to be like, it might need a bit of a reality check. Last season was up and down, and I think a lot of what happened last season, we had a sporting director that wasn't really on the same page as Smith as well. I don't fully believe that a lot of the players were Smith players. I might be wrong, but that's my opinion. This season, I think the recruitment has, what's really, really pleased me this season, we haven't just signed names on the back of shirts. We have signed characters, profiles. We've signed players that will run through a brick wall, that work for each other. And, their stock has gone from, down there, and it's just going to go up and up and up. I mean, today you've probably unavoidable that Conce is on the tip of everyone's tongues. Well, he's been on our tongue since the end of last season, and his stock is rising rapidly. And if England do pass up the chance and it does get Portugal, well, they've gained and we've lost. And that's all I can say on that. And it just feels like that is the kind of character of our club at the moment, that we are taking players, and almost like that Brentford ethos of taking players that maybe not where you think where they should be right now, and building them and kind of letting them grow into the potential that they should be. And it's, it's brilliant to watch. And, and I think there's no better manager than Smith to do that for him as well.
No, totally agree with you, mate. Every point you've made, absolutely bang on. I think what fans need to remember, or maybe not remember, but recognise, is that, players that are coming into this club now are players that fit not just the quality that we're looking for, but also fit the dynamic and the teamwork understanding and the education that we're building at Aston Villa. It's a very different looking kind of remit of requirements now at the club. Dean Smith isn't just going to bring in a big hothead from somewhere who's doing very well, exceptionally well somewhere else, and bringing them in. That's not what he's looking for. No. He's looking for characters that want to continue to learn, want to build, want to be a part of something, can offer that quality and that skill level that we're looking for and that we need to move forward positively. but there's also so much behind the scenes that players need to be able to get involved with. Look at the players that we brought in the summer. Each and every one of them has an element of leadership about them, has an element of hard work, graft, and huge momentum to want to play well and to want to graft every last minute before that final whistle goes. Gone are the days where we have players like let's pick one out the box. Nzogbia, absolutely bang on, perfect example. Big showman who no doubt were skillful players, but had no desire to want to win games when you were losing. Just throw the towel in. It's all right. We'll play again on Saturday. We ain't got players like that anymore.
No.
And I think we need to remember that. That's a huge thing. And Dean Smith knows what he's looking for. You see lots of fans on Twitter saying, "Oh, we should be in for him. We should be in for him." No, we shouldn't, because you're not Dean Smith. You're not the man leading this mission. Just look forward to signings coming in, and look forward to players being brought to the club that might be a little bit different from what we're used to the last kind of 10 years. But the club is going forward right now, and I can't see us going back at any point. I'm chuffed to bits with where we are and what we're doing and the vision that the club have. So.
Absolutely. And I think, again, going on that, in terms of signings, and I think, again, sort of, we're all on Twitter and you hear rumblings of Villa are in for X and Villa are in for Y. And straight away now, you just know, I heard rumblings of Diego Costa straight away. No, that's not a Villa signing anymore. And it's such easy and lazy journey. I can understand why they do it, because Villa of old would be, let's throw 100 grand a week at him and, get him in and see if he can save us for 6 months. And, I think there was rumblings of this guy from Germany, Rasisha, and I think you're probably the one person that stuck to your guns and be like, no, this is not happening, because when you come out with comments right now saying, I don't want to be involved with a relegation fight, Smith will just lose interest in you straight away. If you are not the right attitude, profile, you're just not going to get looked at again by Smith. And he may now look at that and go, what have I done? But I do believe that, that you've lost your chance with Smith. If you're not buying into what he's doing from day one, you're just not going to fit his profile.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think what, there's a lot of confusion about how transfers work. I think a lot of people play far too much Football Manager, and they think by clicking a button, you've bought your player and the contract's offered and you'll sign. That's just not how transfers work. A hell of a lot of transfers take 2, 3, 4, if not more weeks to get sorted and get solved. And so, Dean will know as soon as he speaks to a player that he's interested in, within the first 5-10 minutes, he will understand exactly where that player is, and where their head's at, and whether they want to be involved in this project or not. And who knows what that conversation is, but the psychology of that conversation is so powerful, and Dean loves all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, totally right, mate. Absolutely right. The Rashica thing, as soon as he comes out and says he's not interested in a relegation battle, then it's a see you later. I'm not interested. You may have been a player that we were interested in, but that's as far as it goes. A phone call. The rest of it, mate, see you later. Not bothered.
Yeah,
and, the press love it, mate. The press love jumping on anything. They've got to make their money. That's their job. That's what they do. There are some really good journalists out there that say some really good stuff and have some really good insight as to what's going on at the club. But most of them, mate, are quite frankly diabolical, and they're just out there to put stories out. But, every fan base gets magnetized to anything that comes out relative to their sport and their team. And that's the way media works. That's the way Twitter works and has worked for so many years. So just taking things with a pinch of salt, I think, and really just looking forward to whatever happens and being excited by the surprise, not needing to know who we're linked with until they sign. How amazing is it when a player signs and you haven't heard their name, like Wesley, for example. Time at Villa hasn't been particularly great, injury prone, injuries mostly. But he just came out of nowhere. Nobody knew the name Wesley. No one had even heard of him. And all of a sudden he signed on the dot. Brazilian import coming into the club. Like, that was exciting. I loved that. And I think we need to be more appreciative of things like that.
And I think, that goes again to something I think that shows how well run we are now, because, I know there was rumblings of sort of Loftus-Cheek and Barkley being available, and it all seemed to go quiet. And then all of a sudden we woke up and, our Twitter admin, as they love to do, morning villains, and Barkley signing, you're just like, what? Where's, and you knew it was something was going on, or, there was Loftus-Cheek, or would it be Barkley? And then all of a sudden he's, and I just think it's fantastic. I really do. And I'm, was saying to a lot of my lads, and I'm a fairly realistic Villa fan, or I'd like to think I am, and it's probably the first time since, like you say, the O'Neill days, I think I'm looking forward to the Villa game next. Before
absolutely.
then, I've been a season ticket, most of my life, but I've been going through gritted teeth a lot of the time because you think, oh God, I remember City at home last season, and I wasn't looking forward to going.
Yeah.
I hated it during, and I hated the drive home, but we still go, and that's been the feature of being a Villa fan. He's got such up and downs, but I do think that the tide's really turned, and I think we're so lucky that the owners that have taken over, the coaching staff that we've now got, the players that we've now got. I know again a lot of our fans have sort of said, well, what does John Terry do when things weren't quite going right? But you've got 4 real defenders that signed in the same transfer window that he had to throw together. In fact, 5 with Target and Gilbert, 6, that he had to try and get as a back 4, and now they can't speak highly enough about how much they brought him on, and it's just a really exciting time to be a Villa fan. I really feel that, and I think it's just good to sort of be back where we belong. I believe in the top division competing.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Villa are a top Premier League team. You only have to hear what players coming into the club say. You only have to hear what players who we play against say about Villa Park and the club and the traditions and the size of the club. I've always been a bit of a skeptic about the big club analogy, but to be fair, Villa are a big club. We are a big club in the UK. Villa are a big club, and that will never leave us, because there are still people who experience those days very much alive and supporting Villa this day. So and I think all that's happening now is that Villa are showing in every aspect and every department at the club that we are that big club, and that we can challenge, and that we fear nobody, and that we can bring quality players to the club who want to play for Aston Villa, and we can't fault that. And like you say, you bang on. The owners have changed the game for us. I don't know what shooting star was going across Villa Park that day.
Absolutely.
But, we are very lucky to have the 2 owners that we have. Money is not an issue. It will never be an issue. And we are being ran like a proper business and a proper footballing side. And
definitely,
and no fan can be disgruntled at that.
Absolutely.
That's quality. There's so many clubs that we're crying out for our owners.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think kind of that sort of phrase that I still think sort of sends a few tingles down people's spine. The minute the whistle went in the playoff final, and he said the fallen giants are back on their feet, and I think that is it's so right in what he's saying, because even though we weren't going down for quite a few seasons, we were in the Premier League, like you were saying, we were rotting. We were just surviving year after year after year, and it was, no one wants to see that. You'd rather go into the Championship and compete and be excited to go and win games again. And I think, like you say, I think that reset button got hit on us massively. We, like you say, we had that merry-go-round of owners and managers, but ultimately, I think that's been as important to ourselves, and I think it's gave us a bit of a reality check of how quickly things can slide. But like you say, again, just to reiterate the point, we're just so lucky with kind of the owners that we've had, and I'm delighted the progression that we've seen in the last 12 months, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the funniest thing for me is that there are so many other fan bases and clubs that just have no idea what Villa have at the helm. Even the papers and even the media get it wrong. Top 10 richest clubs in the Premier League, and Villa are nowhere to be seen. People have no idea, and that for me is a beautiful thing. Arrogance is bliss. We have that kind of secrecy about us, and we just keep cracking on with our jobs. And how have Villa spent 100 million this summer transfer window? Arsenal didn't even spend 2. Because it's there, and it will always be there. And all Villa fans really can expect moving forward is transfer windows and things at the club to just get bigger and better, and players coming in will only be improving what we have, and we're not a selling club anymore. Look at the way the board have kept Jack on board, and and players like Ezri being linked with Tottenham and Liverpool today. He's not going anywhere. He's absolutely not going anywhere. He is one of the main people on that team sheet at the moment, and will be, I'm sure, for years to come. So just a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you do, but I'm a massive basketball fan as well. Milwaukee Bucks are not my team, but our owners So I do have a keen interest in them now, and they did exactly the same thing. They've arguably got the best player in basketball at the moment that was kind of and ahhing and tied him down to another 5 years. And you think the kind of ethos about both teams are exactly the same thing, and it's amazing to see that, could they have cashed in on Jack this summer? I don't know if there was an actual realistic bid that went in. They could have lowered it and gone for 60 million, maybe got more interest, but they don't want that. They want to see. And they came in, and you hear it a lot, owners, and we're going to be here in 5 years' time, and we're going to be champions. What our owners say, you just believe there is substance behind it, and that they've literally everything they've said that they've lived up to, and it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, it is lovely. And, it builds a huge amount of trust and rapport with the fan base when your owners say stuff and declare stuff and announce things. And very quickly, those things happen without question. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's really exciting, that the fact that when things are announced and said, within the space of 6 months, that's going to be fulfilled in some way, shape or form. And that to me is massive. There's nothing more powerful than fan base loving their owners and supporting their owners and staying loyal to the club because of the owners and the players and the staff that are working there and everything. It's exciting times, mate. I can't fault it.
Absolutely. Last question before we go into some quick fire. I think it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about our academy, because I think in years gone by, I think we always had a really fantastic academy. And I think we lost that. But I mean, I know we're in a much better place, and I know, like I say, I know you kind of brush shoulders with sort of people like Dan Bardell and know a little bit more than probably we do. What's your thoughts and kind of the future and the academy that we've got now?
Best place we've ever been, mate, in regards to the academy. Best ran, best managed, best vision, best understanding of what an academy is and what it should be at a club like Villa. It's the best it's ever been. I think it's, for many years, particularly under the Randy Lerner era, was neglected.
I was actually in the academy through the Randy Lerner era, so I played from like 12 to 15. So
amazing.
And it just, I left and things just, that it was kind of when it was going stale, to be honest. And now you look around, it looks phenomenal.
Oh, it's phenomenal, mate. It's phenomenal. Facilities, the opportunities that the young lads are getting. And there's a real emphasis on, if you're playing for an academy side, under 17s, under 18s, under 19s, the chances are you're going to be given an opportunity in that first team. Now, it might not be 10 games in a row, but you're certainly going to get introduced. Look at the likes of Chooks at the minute, Kessler, all of those boys getting involved with the first team training sessions, Louis Barry training with Jack Grealish and Matty Cash for a crossing activity. That never existed. I can't remember ever Villa first team getting the young blood really involved in what was going on, because education, that for me is where we've changed. That's about education. Those boys are never going to play first team football regularly anytime soon. What they are going to do is learn from those players that are currently embracing that ethos, embracing that new culture, because that's contagious. And when you're 16, 17 years old, you're influenced by such simple things. So if you are surrounded by positive, true professionals doing this, doing that, following this, following that, that's what you will believe is the right way to work at a football club. And so your chances are probably going to be really likely when it comes to 18, 19 and you get called up for the first team for a fixture. And that's where it's changed, mate. And also for me, I think back in the day, we sold far too many of our talented youngsters far too soon. Barry Bannon, for example, great little player, perhaps not Premier League standard, but back in the day, he was a good footballer, and he just got cast aside. And Gary Cahill, went on to do amazing things. We sold him to Bolton, for goodness sake. Like
Davis, who's now at Rangers.
Davis, all of these players that, a lot of talent and a lot of skill were just cast aside because there was no investment in the academy. So there was no want to make them better players. It was just a case you've come through the academy. There's nothing for you now. All the best. Like, see you later. So that's changed for me massively.
And that is a real big point as well. And I know it's something, a real big talking point in the press at the minute, that, when I remember, being at Villa and you do get treated like a prince and you can't do it. I was 12 and Mark Walters was my coach at the time. and Sean Verity, I think he runs the 18s now. So I had a chewing gum in my mum's car on the way there, and I was chewing it as I come in, and he pulled me up and he said, "You chewing gum?" And I thought, "Oh God, what have I done wrong?" I said, yeah, sorry. He was like, no. If you like chewing gum, we'll have some sat on your bench for you when you come. And you think, I'm 12, but that's the psychology that I look at, and then you get released, and that's it. That's it. You go from all your friends going, oh, he plays for Villa, he's this, he's that, he's the other, and then you're released, and then back then you probably think, if I didn't have such a good network of friends and family, and just my brother as well, you could spiral into such sort of dark place, because you go from being someone that everyone kind of talks about and goes, oh, he plays for so and so and he's going to make it and blah, blah, to absolutely, oh, he plays for Lichfield or he plays for Chasetown, and great clubs, don't get me wrong, but it's not Villa, is it? Do you know what I mean? So and I do think there is a lot more that can be done about that as well.
It's a topic that I've been talking about with other people, really, not particularly on Twitter, but just within the kind of sporting remit. I'm good friends with JP Pittman, former professional at Torquay. He lives just up the road from me, and he's a good friend of mine. And we talk a lot about the mental health of young players who are released, and that transition from being an academy star to being released, and football no longer being your future, and things have got to change. But I just don't see that being a problem at Villa. I think that there are some real solid foundations and some real welfare concerns involved in all elements of the academy. Well looked after, well appreciated, never given too much of a leash to just go away and do whatever they want. It's put into perspective, it's relative. And I think we'll be okay at Villa, mate. We've got some hellish players coming through. We saw the team that were put out against Liverpool in the FA Cup. Some real talents in there.
And that was 18s, really, wasn't it? That wasn't even the 23s, really, was it? And that's what I was trying to say to my friend. I'm a bit of a Villa geek, so I watched the 18s and 23s on YouTube. And so I knew, when I looked at that team, I thought, that's a really young, 18s team that, we had 16, 17-year-olds rather than, your 20, 19-year-olds. And I think what they did, I know, it was a bit of a lose-lose for Liverpool. They either, and I did feel a little bit, I lost a bit of respect for Klopp, actually, because I know he bleats on a little bit about how he never gets any sort of rest. But he said he picked a team a couple of days before and it was unfair to change. I disagree with that. I think everyone in the press knew a long time before that. It was about 4 or 5 days before the game about the COVID. And but fair play to him. Like you say, I think in the past, we probably have had a few players coming through that might not have got the right attitude, but I think, to a man, every single one of the lads showed that the attitude at Villa Park right now is sensational.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any players currently in the under 23s, under 18 setup that don't deserve a chance, because everything seems to be on the outside there in place. Their attitude's right, their discipline's right, the respect for the position that they're in is right, the skill base is there, the talent is there, the understanding of the football ethos is there. And I think what really goes on that Liverpool fixture was that the amount of under 23s that couldn't play because they'd already been involved with first team training that, I don't know any other club right now who 9 players from the under 23 side can't play in the under 23s fixture because they've been involved in the first team bubble. Let's take a positive from that. 9 of those youngsters currently involved with what's going on in the first team, whether it be a session in the morning, a behind closed doors fixture, whatever it might be. That's insane. And that just goes to show the way that the academy is running now. And that is nothing but great, mate. There's nothing but good in that.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, I think since we finished talking about the lows of kind of getting relegated, the tone in your voice has changed about sort of the future, the excitement, and it is fantastic to be a Villa fan. So, moving swiftly on to our quick fire questions, just to finish us off. So, who is your favourite ever Villa player?
A really hard question. I'm going to go for Martin Larsson.
Okay.
And I say that because I can't remember a player who was here for not that long making such an impact in such a short amount of space of time. I know he had his injury when he had second season, but he was given the captain's armband, and for me it was just kind of just after when I really got into watching Villa play.
Yeah.
I was a central defender. That was kind of my role as a youngster, and he was just everything that I ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
I love a Danish footballer. There's no doubt about it. I love a Scandinavian man playing football. Olaf Melberg, probably a very close second.
Mm-hmm.
I love that kind of big, strong, tall, stancy, colossus central defender. And so for me, Martin Larsson would probably take the pit, but there are several other players.
Yeah. I think
I
if
love Sean
Jack
Maloney.
keeps going. Sean Maloney. Yeah, if Jack keeps going the way he goes, then he's gonna be undoubtedly everyone's sort of.
Of course.
But I think, like you say, going to Lawson and Melberg as well. If you could write down on a piece of paper what a captain looked like, you're describing those two blokes. They were just man mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, the best ever game you've been at Villa Park? Could be result, atmosphere.
Dear, it's a hard one because I'll be totally honest. I haven't been to Villa Park that much, mate. So
you live a little bit while away, don't you? Actually,
I live in Devon, but I've never lived anything more than 3 hours away from. I've always lived more than 3 hours away from Villa Park. So
that'll upset all the blue noses who say we don't live in Birmingham.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was a forces kid, so my dad was in the forces, so I spent a lot of my childhood in Germany, Scotland, and you just never got to Villa Park. It was as simple as that, really. So I think I've been to Villa Park and watched more Villa games in the last 2 years than I have all my life. So I loved the first game of last season when we came up, the game against Bournemouth. I know we lost, but the environment and the feeling of being back in the Premier League, hosting a Premier League side, new players on the pitch. The stadium had completely been revamped. All the new paintings, all the new decoration. That was amazing for me, mate. So
I missed that one because I was on a holiday. But I think in recent times, the best atmosphere that I can remember at Villa Park, bar sort of the Leicester Cup game, was Everton. The game after that at home when we won 2-0, and honestly.
2-0.
It felt like the stadium was moving, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah. Okay, number 3. What's your favourite away stadium you visited? Could be Villa related, could be just that you've been and watched neutrally.
Yeah, probably Upton Park.
Okay.
The old Upton Park. I don't know whether they call it Upton Park. No, it's not. It's the Olympic.
The Bowling Green,
now,
wasn't it? Yeah, it's the Olympic Stadium. Yeah.
So, Upton Park. Like I say, I've been there with the old man. Good stadium. I think a lot of their fans get a lot of critics. They're not that bad a bunch, really, if you know them and you're forever blowing bubbles. They're not that too bad a bunch, really. So for me, Upton Park.
I feel they're a little bit similar to us in terms of that. They've had a lot of turmoil, but they just want success. They want passion on the pitch, and they don't expect a lot other than hard-working players that they've got a good attitude. And I don't think it's hard to ask, really. But I totally agree. It's a fantastic stadium.
Yeah, I think where they are now is where we were with Randy Lerner and Gia, because their owners aren't everybody's favourite slice of bread. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's really Moyes and the players' passion and hard work that's getting them the results. Really, the owners probably could do with selling up and moving on to pastures new. And I hope that they get that. For to be fair, it'd be nice to see them get some new owners and some.
No, absolutely. Fourth question: what was the first ever match you attended?
First ever match I attended was Borough and Villa at Riverside when we won 5-2 and Luke Moore scored a hat-trick.
I remember the result, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a Luke Moore, Peter Crouch and a Gareth Barry 5-2 win at Riverside. Can't remember when that was. I think that was a long time ago, because at the time I lived in Yorkshire with my parents, so Riverside wasn't that too far away. So that was my first ever Villa fixture, mate. Borough Villa, and a good result too.
Absolutely. Okay, and the one to finish us off, who do you think is the most underrated Villa player currently? I probably would have said Conte before this morning, but he seems to have already got the plaudits all morning. So
I think where we're at, there's two for me. I think one is a more obvious selection. I think that Matty Targett is probably coming into this season. He was definitely the most underestimated player. Yeah. He was a bit of an underdog favourite.
Yeah.
He was still finding his feet, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. But my God, he has turned into an incredible left wing back this year.
Yeah.
You know,
I think most fans
player.
couldn't understand why we didn't get another left back in, and I think
No.
he's proved why.
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. And so for me, Matty Targett gets that spot. And then I think another player, and I've loved him since he arrived at the club, is Trez.
Yeah.
You know, I love a hard-working player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love a player that doesn't give up. And yes, 99% of the time his shooting is appalling and his finishing isn't great. But he scored some key goals for us when it really mattered.
Yeah.
And, you know, when he plays, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a tenacious bulldog winger that just doesn't give up. Yeah. And for me, I think he's hugely underrated. And I'm really pleased that whatever, you know, happened at the end of last year, where it was talk about him leaving and going on loan somewhere, I'm really glad that didn't happen, because I think he's really a huge part of what we're trying to do at Villa, and he offers us something different on the wing. So for me, Trez.
Yeah, I think with what I've always felt with Trez is in particularly in certain games when we know that we're probably going to need to do a little bit more defending, I think it actually almost allows us, when we're defending, to almost go as a 4-4-2 and allow Jack to cheat a little bit, because you see it, I think it was Palace when we went down to 10, and Jack always seemed to be in a space at the top, and it was only because someone was, you know, balancing that midfield out, and I don't think people understand just how much he does for the team when he's in. But I mean, I've said Ollie Watkins, and I know he does get a fair amount of praise, but I think he got a lot of stick when we weren't scoring. But I don't think people realise, again, what he does is so integral to the way Smith plays, and I don't think I could pick anybody that could do what he does week in, week out. And you look at his injury record, and I'm touching wood right now, but he plays every minute of every game, and he just puts in the same amount of effort. And, you know, like you say, the last few weeks where we might have been underperforming, you know, you look at Ollie and you think he's probably, him and Emi Martinez are probably the only two that throughout it have been able to go, you know what, I've put a proper shift in tonight. Yeah, totally. You know, Trez has been injured, so you probably excuse him on that. But, you know, again, it just goes to show that, you know, you sign the right character and personality, and you're halfway there. I think you can teach talent.
Yeah. He's the best centre forward we had at the club since Benteke. Absolutely no doubt about it. The critics that he get are totally unjust. Yeah. You know, he does 99% of the things that no other centre forward since Benteke have ever been able to do. You know, he offers us a completely different dynamic up top, and he's a talented player, and he knows where the goal is. Yeah, he works hard. He can hold the ball up like an Alan Shearer. You know, he knows what he's doing, and the relationship that he had with Dean Smith from Brentford clearly is evident there now. Mm-hmm. You know, Dean brought him in because he trusts him. He knows what he's about. He understands what he wants and what he doesn't want to do, and we've played to that, mate. And he's been phenomenal for us. So. Yeah, I quickly reject any comments negatively towards Ollie. You know, he's a star player. Funnily enough, his parents live in the local town where I live. He's from down this way.
He's from Exeter, isn't he? That's where he's. Yeah.
Well, he lives. His mum and dad live in Newton Abbot, which is where I live. So he's a well-known local lad down here. A few of the boys that I play football with in the local team. They knew Ollie from school, so he's well known down here. So,
but he seems like a nice kid as well. He just seems like a nice kid. Got a nice way about him.
Yeah, lovely lad. You know, doesn't get carried away with anything. Just plays football because he loves to play football, and I think that just epitomizes the kind of player that Dean wants to bring in. And so, you know, long may that continue.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, that's all from me today, mate. But again, I just wanted to sort of extend my thanks. I really appreciate you coming on short notice.
Not a problem.
And long may the success and excitement continue, mate. But I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks ever so much. And everyone else, if you like, please like and subscribe. And look forward to speaking to you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.